Hi, my name's Harris, I'm from the Workshop channel, and today in this video we are going to be doing a Mother's Day project. For this project we are going to be using an offcut of our mahogany that we reclaimed in a previous video. Go watch that, it's up there. And we are going to be putting some ducks on it for some reason, because I don't know, people like ducks. We've cut some templates out on the cry cut, these little ducks. Basically we've got my mum and 3 little ducklings representing me and my brothers. Basically what I'm trying to say is we've got a concept, we've got an idea in our head, but we're just going to see how this works out, and if it doesn't, chocolate. In order to make sure they stay stuck down while we're cutting them out on the scroll saw, brand new scroll saw, got that for Christmas, we're going to be using it out on this project extensively, and we're going to make sure that they stay in place using some more of this spray adhesive, which we used in the previous video. Again, so many shout outs to previous videos. And yeah, that's the first step. The reason the ducks are in the layout that they are is just because we're trying to maximize the amount of material that we're going to get out of this piece of wood. This lonely duck over here does not represent any brother in particular. Not naming any names. Just so that we don't have to move this whole piece of wood around on the scroll saw, we're going to cut this into smaller, more manageable pieces. If you thought we couldn't get any cheaper, then we are going to be trying to cut the base out of this piece of mahogany. Now, you might notice that there's quite a lot kind of going on, and we're just going to make a mark to see how much of the base of the really nice wood we can get out of this. Now that I've got kind of an idea, I think these pieces are ready for cutting out on the scroll saw. Before I do that, I'm just going to draw around this template with a Sharpie, just to give us some margin of error and give us something to sand later. So I'm only going to be cutting to the Sharpie line. For this scroll saw in particular, you don't need any ear protection. However, I would strongly recommend eye protection. I think it's essential for something like a scroll saw. What I've done here with the white Crayola is I've kind of continued on the radius to basically where I'm going to come in with the scroll saw, and that just makes it a lot easier to visualize, you know, where you're going to be cutting. So, this is our duck so far, and a good indication that it looks alright is if you turn it over, it almost looks like a duck from the other side. Obviously this is going to need some sanding, as you can't always get the exact kind of radius that you want for every single part. I'm sure I could do a lot better if I spent some more time with the scroll saw, but I'm pretty happy with this, you know, before sanding. As you can see, we've got the rough shapes cut out of all of our ducks. But some of them have been left with some unicorn noses and party hats. So we're just going to clean those up. And I should also mention that you should probably be wearing something like a mask, or if you've got really fantastic dust extraction. I'm not sure if it's just when you're cutting a material like this, or if it's just scroll saws in general, but I've found that dust gets everywhere. That looked like I snapped off his feet there. I got scared. Alright, cool. So we've just got this oscillating sander in. Good thing about this, again, is it's not particularly noisy. Okay, so after that sanding, they're starting to look a lot more like the ducks that we want them to be. Even when you flip them over and you can't see the outline, they kind of look like ducks. So we've got these new files here. I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. And we're just going to be filing down the bits where our belt sander that oscillates cannot get into. We've also got the duck clamped to the workbench with a quick release clamp, and that's just so that we can consistently get a perpendicular motion. Not going to make you watch all of this because it's fairly boring and repetitive. I got 3 more ducks to do, so I guess we'll just fast forward to when I've done all of this. Especially when you're filing fine grain wood like this mahogany here, you can end up with a pretty big build-up of filings of mahogany on your file, and this can cause your file to be less effective, which may make it seem like you've got a dud file. What you want to do is take something like a nail brush and give it a good clean. Some people call this carding, I call it cleaning. And there we go, you should have a slightly more effective file. What we're going to be doing for our ducks is inlaying this piece of brass. We got these off of Amazon, relatively cheap, arrived the next day, and we are going to basically make this our duck's eyeball. In order to do that, we need to drill out some space in the duck's eye. So we are going to be using a 3mm drill bit. Now if you want to check if this will actually work and you don't have access to some calipers, you can just put them up next to each other and feel this feels like 0.5 mm too big, and that's because our 3mm is set up in the drill press, which is how we're actually going to be drilling them out. Now I've just taken this weird scalpel dentist thing that's made by Silverline, and basically just poked into the wood and then gone there with my automatic centre punch. Unfortunately you can't see that because the paper on it. And now we can get drilling. So we've got a first duck clamped to, well not clamped, we've got a piece of wood clamped to the table of the drill press, and that's to prevent tear out and also to support the duck's head, as the grain is exactly where we don't want it. We didn't think about that earlier, and we don't want to risk snapping its neck. We've got it basically all set up now, and now we're just going to drill. We've got a knife. Okay, so as you can see, we've got our hole drilled through on the other side, and our brass rod fits very nicely. So that's kind of what we're going for there. And because it shook a bit, obviously there is a bit of tolerance. I wasn't expecting so much resistance. Actually, the drill press did fantastically. I was just overestimating my ability to clamp something with one hand. So we're just going to add some super glue or something like that, and hopefully that will secure the duck's iron. Okay, so we're going to be putting the brass rods in so that they will set by tomorrow. To do that, we got some 2-part epoxy, 50/50 stuff, just some unbranded stuff we got from the pound shop. And I'm just cutting out these tabs that hold in the little stirring stick. I'll just snap this off, and now it's ready for use. So I'll just roll this in the epoxy, and then impale it into a duck's eye. Hopefully not getting a bunch of the mahogany. Doesn't matter too much because we will be doing some sanding. Make sure that it's pressed all the way in there, and right around the edges. Hopefully by doing this on a fairly flat surface, we won't have to do too much sanding on one side, and we can just trim this off with something like a coping saw and then sand this side. We'll just leave those all to cure overnight. In order to remove these brass rods out of the duck's eyes, we've got these. These are basically massive industrial nail clippers, and we've tried it on a test piece. It worked really well, and with a bit of filing, I think it would be perfect. So what we want to do is come in kind of sideways, and then work our way backwards so that we get the most leverage or leverage as possible, and then just give them a good snip. I can feel it moving, I just don't want to Alright, where's the duck gone? Him's alright? Ah, that's alright. Nice. Yeah, we've got rid of them. We are going to be reusing these sections of brass, and that's so that we can attach our ducks to the stand. Now the pincher's removed the majority of the brass, but you are left with a very weird kind of shape where it's pinched the metal. So we're just going to clean that up with the same files that we used to shape them. We we've made our mark. We've made our mark on the middle, well, roughly the middle of our duck. We can't actually work out the middle using weight anymore, and that's because we put a brass eye and it's surprisingly dense. But we've made a mark roughly down the middle where we're going to drill our hole, where the brass rod's going to connect from the duck to the base. We've clamped up our duck in our vise, and we're going to pop that on the pillar drill. We've still got the 3mm bit in it, and we've also put a piece of masking tape where we want to stop, so that we're not drilling, all the way through the duck. Okay, with that marked, and we just give it a little centre punch with our automatic centre punch. Now we can move on to drilling it. Piece of scrap just to see how it sits on our brass rod, and there we go, that's what it will look like, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now that we've got these guys on a stick, we're going to make a base so I don't have to be here holding them. We are going to be painting this base white first, and that's so that we can paint the flax blue over top of it, and then sand it down so that we get kind of a wishy-washy, weathered finish. Something that I really don't like, but you see it in a lot of shops that sell candles and air fresheners and pillows that are really expensive, and cards, don't forget the cards. Yeah, let's get on with it. Forgot to say, we temporarily made this little stand just to work out how far apart our duck should be, and it looks pretty good, so if this doesn't work we can always revert to that. I feel like I really achieved the finish I was going for. So I think we're going to wrap up the white, and once this dries we'll put on a flax blue. Or flax blue? Flax blue. I don't know. A blue. Now we're just going to apply a thin layer of flax blue, just like we did with the white, to our base, and while that's drying we can finish up the duck. Next step is smoothing out all our ducks. So we've got a variety of different sanding apparatus. We've got some 120 grit on a piece of plywood, and that's so that we can get a really consistent kind of sand. Then we've also got some very flexible, sheets of sandpaper for getting into the finer details, and one of these kind of spongy, coarse pads, just because they're good. Now it's time to get on sanding. Okay, that's our ducks basically all sanded. So next step is running all of them over with a tack cloth and maybe a bit of the vacuum, just to get all the dust off before we start putting some sanding sealer and hopefully some tongue oil. For these ducks, we're going to be finishing them the same way we did in our mahogany box. If you haven't seen that, go watch that. Basically, some shellac sanding sealer painted on with just a paintbrush. And after that, we're going to scratch up or smooth the surface with some double zero wire wool. Then, after we've done a couple of layers of that, some tongue oil. Those guys look amazing. We're just going to let the sanding sealer soak in for 20 minutes. So we've just let that sink in for a good amount of time, and now we're going to come back with some double zero wire wool and basically scuff up all the high points, and then we'll wipe them off with a Neptune cloth, and we can get to applying our second layer of shellac sanding sealer we'll just wipe that off because we don't really have time to be messing around, and that's what we did on the previous project. It seemed to work perfectly fine, and then we'll start applying tongue oil. Okay, so they've gone a bit dull as expected, so we're just going to run over them with an e-cloth to remove as much of the dust as we possibly can before applying the next coat of sanding sealer. Now I'm just going to wipe off the excess with the e-cloth. Before we drill the holes, the base is finished drying up, and it's definitely got the aesthetic of meh. So we're just going to scuff it up with some 240 to bring out the white underneath the blue, and also the mahogany under the white. I think we're just finding out that Neptune paint's really durable. Can't believe I'm doing this. I'm scuffing up this lovely piece of mahogany that we spent a while like planing down and like finishing some of it, and now I'm just going in with some 120, and I don't understand people that like this finish. I really can't get behind it. I mean, it's good for Nerf gun props, and that's about it. There we go, it's done, it's ruined. We did it. It looks very ruined, so yeah, I don't know. It's sad. Okay, so with those scuffed up again and then cleaned with an e-cloth, we can move on to tongue oil. And while that's soaking into the grain, we can mark or transfer the markings that we've already made across onto our base to drill holes for our brass rods. Nice. Like I said, while those are drying, we're just going to transfer our marks across. So we know the middle of this is 33. So I'll just grab this and poke. Cool. Okay, so if I line up this ruler here, you can see that our lines are pretty well in line. So I'm just going to make these marks a bit obvious and a bit easier for the drill press by just giving them a good old centre punch. And now I get to drill the holes. We're just trimming these brass rods down to their final length using the same tool that we used previously, and that's the height that they'll all be. A little bit. Okay. And leave them there to rest for a second. I'll get them roughly in the right place first. Not perfect. I don't know. Hopefully will look brilliant.